Hi, and welcome to Consordini.com. I'm Justin Leopard, and in today's lesson, I want to talk about the question, is cello hard? You might have wondered this either because you want to start cello and you're wondering, what am I getting myself into? Or maybe you've started cello and you're wondering, is it supposed to be this hard? So the short answer is, cello is pretty hard. People often consider piano and violin, or cello, which is very similar, to be the hardest instruments to play. So the reasons why, I'll delineate quickly, are that for one, you have to control pitch. Unlike a guitar or piano, or even to some extent wind instruments, which have keys and only some breath control plays a factor in intonation, we have to be very, very sensitive both with our fingers and our ears to make sure that we're in tune. Especially since intonation is such a tricky concept, even conceptually, which is something that probably is a topic for another video, but being in tune is already a very complicated concept, so having to be in control of that with every note is very hard. The other thing is that the cello is tuned in fifths, which means that unlike guitar, where you can kind of run up and down the different strings, with cello, you have to use maybe sometimes some more awkward fingerings or thumb position, definitely some things that just take getting used to. Another factor of the cello is the bow. Unlike an instrument where you merely pluck or have to just touch the piano key, with cello you have to really have a sensitive bow control, and many people consider the bow to be 60 or 70% of playing the cello, despite how hard it is already to find the right notes and play them in tune. To make them sound beautiful requires an incredible finesse with the right hand, the bow hand. So these are the reasons why cello is pretty difficult, and definitely you will not hear cello typically shredding. You won't typically hear cello playing too many double stops or chords, those type of things. You won't typically hear cellos play too many runs, though if they're scale runs, then that's pretty common because you're supposed to be practicing your scales, so they're relatively easy in theory. So anyways, what can we do about the fact that the cello is hard? What can it mean for wanting to learn the instrument? And I want to give you guys a framework for approaching it that hopefully will take away some of the fear that can be associated with an instrument being difficult. So to start off with cello, the main thing that people love about it is the tone, the color, as it were, the timbre, that's a term for color, of the cello. They fall in love with hearing sometimes even just a single note beautifully crafted. And this is the flip side of how hard cello is. It's only hard because the responsibility lies on us, the player, to be able to make a lot of these things happen. It's not going to be as simple as plucking a string with finesse. It's not going to be as simple as putting your hand on the right key. It's going to require more. But the result of that is that you shape every nuance of the note in a way that can be just out of this world, moving and pleasing to listen to when done really well. So that might be one of the reasons why it's good that the cello is hard. The other thing is that cello can be something of an intellectual challenge. You might come into it thinking, oh, well, I just want to make pretty music. And you might come out of the process of learning cello realizing that, wow, I've actually learned a lot about what I can learn about life and myself and emotions and just all these other facets of life that go into the conceptual challenge of how to make music on this instrument. So that brings me to something that I wanted to say so that hopefully this video is more encouraging than discouraging. I definitely don't want to discourage you from learning anything, really. Learn what you want to learn because you only have so many hours in your life to learn it. This is one of my attitudes towards cello. And one thing that I find most rewarding about the experience of cello is that learning cello is that I am never done. And I love the challenge. I love trying to take licks from other instruments that typically don't work on cello and trying to make them work on cello. I love trying to cross different genres. I love trying to push myself to be a better musician on the cello. And one thing that I really dislike about the way that music education is often approached is that there's this sense that you're either good or bad, that you either made the cut or didn't, that you're better or worse than someone else. And while this might have a place in a sense of competition, while it might have an intrinsic place in the competition that's involved with being a professional or with selling a lot of records or whatever, this is really otherwise has nothing to do with music. Music is an incredibly personal thing. This is why robots don't make music as good as people make music. The reason we listen to music is oftentimes to get to know ourselves better. So the approach that I prefer to take is, instead of thinking about you being better or worse than someone else, or whether what you're playing is good or bad, just play and pay attention to what you feel. Things that you thought might have sounded bad actually might have a place in a different context, and they don't sound intrinsically bad. So it's not a very helpful mentality to say the way that I played is good or bad. Cello's hard to get sounding the way you want it to. That's what makes it hard. But it's not hard to play it at all. And I'm guessing that even if you've never learned cello, you can pick up the cello and do something with it. So the process of learning cello for me is take where you already are at. Even if all you're at is, I don't know how to hold the cello, but sure, I can pluck a string. Great, that's your starting place. And then probably work on posture and getting set up and playing with a good sound and starting to learn some scales, because really that's going to be the foundation of how you can learn the instrument. But start from where you are and just get better relative to your previous self. Make it a process, not an end result. There's no such thing as a perfect cello performance. Any performance of cello that you go to listen to will have something in it that, if you were the player, you might listen and you might be playing it and think, oh, that note was just a tiny bit sharp, or oh, there was like a little scratch as I started that note. Every performance has those things in it. There is no perfect cello performance. Maybe you can comp together a perfect cello take, but even if you did, maybe it's not the most musical that you can play. So in summary, cello is very difficult, and treat it with respect when you come into it. One thing I would say is that people spend their whole lives, hours a day, practicing cello. I'm one of those people, and they're in brutal competition with each other for professional opportunities. So knowing that that's the amount of work and discipline that it takes just to compete at the professional level of cello, just have respect for the fact that it is difficult, but enjoy the process, because the process will give you so much more than having fear whether it's good or bad, or whether you're playing perfectly enough. So that is the conclusion of this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching it. We have a lot of cello lessons on this site, and I really hope that you explore them all. I really want you to learn cello, and I really want you to engage with the process positively. Leave a comment below, and I wish you the best on your journey. Once again, I'm Justin Leopard with Consordini.com, and we'll see you next time.